Yeah, so we're back again to MLC, and if we're not able to round up the MLC topic today, um, we have one more class next week, and if we're able to round it up today, then we should be having orals on the MLC as well. I'm just gonna start up again because this is really quite important for we studying for our exams and especially for we on board. The MLC has been broken down. First of all, what's MLC? And we try to analyze what MLC is, and it's basically minimum requirement. I mean, it's basically the Seafarers Bill of Rights. And for that to happen, the MLC also sets like minimum requirement for seafarers to work on a ship. So you did not only set the minimum requirement for the company, but you also started by setting a minimum requirement for the seafarers themselves. We've talked about this, but I just want to stress it out again because that's the most important part of the MLC, and especially for those who were not here last 2 weeks and last week as well. So like I said again, when we say MLC, that's the Seafarers Bill of Rights. What's MLC is the Seafarers Bill of Rights, and what does it do? With collaboration with the flag state that pushes for the enforcement and compliance, it helps us in setting a minimum requirement for seafarers to work on a ship. And for that to happen, we really have to really comb so many aspects of where does this MLC, where are they going to fit in, and how is it going to help the seafarers on board. And that's why the MLC has tried to divide it into 5 major titles. 5 titles, not major titles. MLC is now divided into 5 titles in trying to really help and making sure that every single aspect of a good and minimum working requirements on board are met. First week, we spoke about the Title 1, and the Title 1 is the minimum requirement for seafarers to work on a ship. And I told you that the minimum requirement for seafarers to work on a ship is not just for the company, but even for the seafarers themselves as well. And that's why the MLC is not trying to be biased on telling the company, no, you should do this should be their minimum wage, this should be their work and living conditions on board, this should be their minimum accommodation standard, this should be this. No, the first started off, seafarers first of all should be qualified. Seafarers are got to comply. And that's why the first title of MLC 1 is minimum requirement for seafarers to work on a ship. I can't forget this Title 1 because this was my oral question when I was preparing for chief mates at that time. And the MLC guy, the examiner goes, when MLC is talking about minimum requirements for seafarers to work on a ship, what is it talking about? And that's what I'm going to try and recap again. So when it's talking about minimum requirements for you to work on a ship, it's speaking about 1, minimum age. We've spoken about minimum age the first week as well. So minimum age for you to work on a ship is 18, but you can also work on a ship between 16 and 18, and you'll be regarded as a young person. And as a young person on the vessels, there are so many things that, so many additional steps and additional structures that have been put in place to ensure that you're working safe and sound as well. So basically, the minimum age at which you are working on a ship is 16, but between 16 and 18, you are regarded as young persons. And I think last week also, we tried to explain why the young persons are different, especially when it comes to hours of work and rest. And I might try to, I'm not really going to go into much details, but the videos will be there. And I will try and recap as much as we can. So yeah, minimum age. First of all, the seafarers must have a minimum age, 16, like I said, young persons, and when it's 18, that's the minimum age, and you can comply as the rest of other crew. 2, medical certificate. So why am I'm still on Title 1. Title 1 is minimum requirement for seafarers to work on a vessel. 1 is the minimum age. 1, they must be medically certified. And that's why every flag state, BU MCA, BU Egypt, Ghana, Singapore, or whatever, we must all have a medical certification certified by the flag state as well, not just any hospital. So every seafarer must be medically fit to work on board. So that is Title 1.2. 3, training and qualification. For every single post that you handled on board, be you an AB, a deckhand, chief officer, OW, skipper, that's a master, you must have the qualification to really fit into that role. So before you go on claiming your rights from the company as per the Maritime Labour Convention, have you met these 3 requirements? Then 4, that's when we go into proper recruitment and placement. Last week, we dealt much more on the Title 2. So the Title 1, I've just stressed Title 1, and Title 1 is broken into 4. Title 1 is minimum requirements, which shows minimum age, medical certificate, training and qualification, recruitment and placement. That's Title 1. Title 2 of the MLC is condition of employment. So now it's just, if you just look at it from a perspective that you want to remember, it's like, first of all, I want to work on a ship, but the MLC is trying to first bring down a structure or say, before you work on a ship, have you met the minimum criteria? The minimum criteria is what we just deal with. Then now, what are the conditions of employment before you work on a ship? And that's why the Title 2 tried to also break it down to 8. Yeah, on my notes here, I put his 8 chapters inside this Title 2. And the first one is the SEA, very important one. And this one is quite important because every seafarer, SEA, when I mean SEA, I mean the Seafarers Engagement Agreement. And every seafarer must have signed an SEA. And we already had a laugh about it first week and second week. Do you actually read this SEA? Because your SEA, which is, I keep saying SEA, but I need to know that it's the Seafarers Engagement Agreement. It's your contract, in case for those who understand me. So this is your contract before you go on board. Now, I just wanted to know that that is not just a piece of paper for us to take our pen and sign, but every single details in the piece of paper must really be in compliance with the Maritime Labour Convention, must really be compliant with the Maritime Labour Convention. So how do you even know what should be in what should be in this SEA and what should not be in this SEA? We spoke about it last week. I'm not going to go there, but it's a very, very important aspect of the MLC, because I've seen past questions, and even me myself, I've been questioned on what are the components of SEA, what does SEA, what does it entails? It's not just about your name, it's not just about your ship, is not just about your company, but does it also meet repatriation? Does it also meet conditions that are supposed to be in it as well? Secondly, the wages. There will be wages. Does the wages, does it comply with the MLC? Thirdly, with the wages is the part 2 in the Title 2. Sorry for those, so that you follow me properly. After the SEA, then we talk about wages as well. Then inside this Title 2, the third part of Title 2 is the hours of work and rest. Hours of work and rest is something I will really employ and beg everyone to really know the minimum hours of work and rest. And the terminology that we use, especially we try to deal with this last class exclusively, the terminology we use in these hours of work and rest, like Captain Tolu helped us in correcting some of us who said 24 hours in every day. That's wrong, especially if you are meeting a standard examiner. It's in every 24 hours. And for the weekly one, it's not every week, it's in 7 days. So all those terminologies, we should try and make sure that we put it into perspective when we're dealing with it. So Title 2, 1, SEA, Seafarers Engagement Agreement. 2, our wages. 3, hours of work and rest. And the reason I keep stressing on hours of work and rest is because most of the past questions that come in on MLC, they do not exclude hours of work and rest. And even apart from that, even on board as well, on board our vessels, we really need to know our own hours of work and rest. Forgive me by saying, because even me, I found a victim. They give us these hours of work and rest sheet, and just because we want to comply, with the ISM regulation or filling up our paperwork, we just tick boxes, even though we are not complying. But no, it's not supposed to be so. There is a reason. So it is in order to avoid fatigue. It's in order to really help us in a work and rest life balance while we are on board. So even apart from exam purpose, we should also try and really try and see how we can comply also with hours of work and rest. The fourth one is the entitlement to leave. Fifth, under Title II is repatriation. Then the sixth under Title II is seafarers compensation. Seven under Title II, money levels. And then the eighth one is the career skill development and opportunity for seafarers employment. It's career skill development and opportunity for seafarers employment. So that's Title I and II dealt with in the past 2 weeks now. Boom. We are now on Title III, accommodation, recreational facilities, and it's right there on the screen that I'm sharing right now. Before I go ahead, does anybody have any question on those ones that I've just done a quick recap on? All right, I think I'll just kick start. Like I said, I really just wish we'll finish the MLC today so we can put in the orals for it next week. Looking at this accommodation and recreational facilities, it's all basic. So we're not going to spend much time on it as well. But like you can see it on the screen, and this is an extract from the MLC convention. The purpose of this is just to ensure that seafarers have decent accommodation and recreational facilities. Seafarers have decent accommodation and recreational facilities on board. And honestly, it has not been the case for a very long time, especially on vessels that are really struggling. And when I mean struggling, I mean when the ship owners are really struggling. Or even sometimes, when the ship owner doesn't just want to care as well. But it is not even our own responsibility, our own obligation, it's our own obligation for the shipping company to really comply. That's where we come back to the last side, which will be the last side of the MLC. It's up to the flag state to really go out and really inspect this accommodation. Are they really worthy of being stayed in, being lived in? And because these seafarers are going to be leaving their homes, leaving their families, and all kind of sort as well. Apart from even the accommodation, the recreational facilities as well. What has the company put in place? Especially MCA. When they come for vessels that I do work on, they check all these things. And if they are not really satisfied, then for some reason there is nothing we could do about it. We are giving an accommodation. They are giving an exemption because some of our accommodation are just below the waterline, which is not nice. But these vessels have been built, 30 or 40 years ago. So these are stuff, the flag states really try to come in and really help the seafarers to say, no, the accommodation and living condition, and not only living condition, but recreational facilities on board should be well met. Question, how is the accommodation on your vessel? Is it well met? And I will still come back to, at the end of this lecture, because when I started, I really started off by saying this MLC lecture is not just only for exam purpose, it's not only for our practical knowledge, but also for us to really know and have this knowledge and try to put things straight as much as you can. And like I keep saying, it's not like you are the one who will go there and go and fight, but it's the job of the flag state. But how are we going to carry out the reporting procedures down to the flag state? It's still up to us. It's still up to even us, the seafarers, to ensure that the flag state really knows what's going on. And I would like us to discuss about that when we end this MLC lecture. So yeah, accommodation and recreation is really very, very important. 3.2 is food and catering. I'm just going to skip to that. But I think this note already been posted on the group, and it's a very, very good read that, especially if you are preparing for orals, you should try and brush through. So I'm just going to go down to point 2. Yeah. So, yeah. Thank you. So regulation 3.2 is to ensure that seafarers have access to good quality food and drinking water provided by regulated hygienic conditions. Where me, I just want to go in is good quality food and drinking water. And I remember there was a case back 2000 and 2009 and 2010, and there was a vessel that left one particular country. I'm not just going to mention the countries now, but left one particular country, and they've been doing this for a very long time. You know, the food conditions were not good. Even the drinking waters were coming in sachet, and when they come in sachet, it's all, all, let me just say, not hygienic, not good for even drinking at all. And then boom, they had a contract in another country. So they prepared the vessel all around that, did the best they could, and got to the other country. And boom, they had a flag state inspection. A posted inspection, and like Captain Tolu tried to let us know, posted inspection also, they go on board and they check this MLC a lot. They check MLC amongst other regulations that they check as well. But on finding out, they found out these guys do not have one, good accommodation, 3.1, two, access to good food and catering. And then three, looking at the overall of the vessel, no, all they did was detain the vessel. You're not complying with MLC regulation. I don't know the country that you're coming from. Your flag state might not have been doing their job, but for you to come into this territorial water, you must. And guess what they did? They organized, because that was one of the seafarers reporting and making their case known. So they organized a full-blown catering service, come in, provide food for them, and provide, different kind of varieties. And those times, even for them to even have juice was even like, they were having a Christmas party and stuff like that. Which shouldn't be so, because they've just been given just pure water and all those things. So they gave them full food. And also, let's just say they took really good care of them, and they collected every single penny times 3 from the shipping company. Honestly, this kind of flag state is the kind of flag state here that really cares, about cares about following this MLC. So these guys came back again to the country that they really went from, and everything stopped. What am I trying to say? The enforcement and the compliance of ship owners complying with the MLC also still rests on the flag state, but it's our own job as well to try and really push as hard as we can with these flag states to ensure that these companies are really compliant. But coming back to example post now, 3.2 food and catering. Every member shall ensure that their ship that carries its flag carries on board and serve food and drinking water of appropriate quality, nutritional value, quantity that can adequately cover the requirements of the ship and take into account the differing, cultures and religious backgrounds. So, for instance, you are on board Hindu, Jamaican, different sort. The MLC still try and even put it right there to the ship owner, or put it out there for the flags to really enforce this, that no, every seafarer as well must have, quality. And even if someone is, what's the word they normally call it? But yeah, I'll remember later. But people don't eat pig, or people don't eat varieties of food, or people are vegetarian. Everything must all be in place for the seafarer to really have, a quality food on board, different quality, cultural and religious background. It's our right as seafarers, according to the MLC. It's our right as seafarers according to MLC. And these are the things, especially not the examiners also will try and be looking at, but also apart from even exam purpose. Honestly, these are things, the more we know about these things, the more we know we are able to stand on our rights. And if for any reason you get into a position of power in any flag states in any country, this should be, one of the bases, because of course you're once a seafarer as well. Seafarers employed as chief cook with responsibility for food must be trained and qualified for their position on board ship. That means the ship cook must also be trained. They must really know exactly what they're doing and trying to help out and give us in feeding as well. That's three completed. And like I'll recap again, three is more about the accommodation, recreational facilities, food, and catering. And 3.1 tells us about accommodation and recreational facility, quality accommodation, and good recreational facility. 3.2, food and catering, quality food and quality catering. So I'll jump down to 4 right now. Yeah. So 4 is the health protection, medical care, welfare, and social security protection. I'll repeat again. Title 4 of MLC is the health protection, medical care, welfare, and social security protection. 4.1 takes us straight down to medical care on board the ship and ashore. And just the purpose of this is just to protect the health of the seafarer and ensure their prompt access to medical care on board the ship and ashore. And this is why it's being put across to every shipping. I mean, most shipping companies are complying, especially with the MLC, to have a first kit on board, to have medical on board, and not only that, also there should be shore support to evacuate, passengers and to provide medical care to their seafarers on board. Is this the case? If this is not the case, this is something that is worth trying to find out. Not just trying to find out, sorry, I take that back. But this is the case is worth trying to fight. Because in order for all these things, this is what the International Maritime Organization has really put out to us and really put out to flag state. And to be honest, the flag state have really pushed out to comply with this whole MLC as well. I hope by the end of today's class, I'll still have time on how the flag state complies. I mean, how the flag states ensure that the company is really complying with all these being set out, because it's also another very important part in the documentation of the MLC. But yeah, coming back again to the lecture, medical care on board, there must be medical care on board. There must not only be medical care on board, but the shore side also must be ready to assist when there is a medical urgency or when there is medical need for the seafarers on board. And I'll just read the first part, which is each member shall ensure that all seafarers on board that fly its flag are covered by adequate measures for the protection of their health, and they have access to prompt. I like the word prompt. It's not that, there's someone that is sick on board and it took them 5, 6, 7 days before you even get the company to start moving into action. Access to prompt and adequate medical care while working on board. The protection and care under this same paragraph 1 should come at no cost to the seafarer. At no cost to the seafarer. At no cost to the seafarer. And I'm really stressing this out because I got a call a few months ago. The company sent me to so hospital. But guess what? The bill came to me and I'm about to pay the bill. And I'm about to pay the bill, but I cannot afford. In the first place, are you supposed to pay the bill? You're not supposed to pay the bill. You're working on board. This is you coming up from the vessel and the company took you down there. As per the MLC 4.1, it should come at no cost to the seafarer. And then he went back to the company and like, this thing should not come at no cost. And then he threw it because the company also has the MLC. That means they must comply with the MLC convention. So he put it out there and they said, okay, it will come, we will pay for it, but we start taking it from your salary. And he came back to me. And I said, that's nonsense. Go back again to them. And this time around, don't just go back to them again. Bring on the flag state. And that's when we started making some calls. To be honest, every single medical care you receive on board, I'm sure as a seafarer, should come at no cost. And I'm trying to stress this out as well. In the exam purpose, there was an exam. The first question I was saying, and they asked, when are you to pay for your medical check or for any medical emergency that you have on board. And the candidates was like, oh, I think when the company cannot afford, then it comes down to me, even if there was an accident on board. And the examiner was not happy with that. And the examiner actually asked him to go back down to the MLC 4.1 and try to come back again with the answer. And he came back again with the answer in capital letter at no cost to the seafarer. So I really want us to really get that. And 3 said each member shall ensure that seafarers on board in a territory who are in need of immediate care are given access to members facility on shore. There must be shore support, and that's what I've just tried to stress as well. So that's 4.1. That's 4.1. I'll move straight down to 4.2. And 4.2 is ship owners liability. Blah, 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 blah. Is it? Yeah. Ship owners liability. And what's the purpose of this? Just like the headline, it just says to ensure that ship owners are protected from financial consequences of sickness, injury, or death occurring in connection with their employment. You are protected. As a seafarer, you should be protected. Any financial consequences that happen due to sickness, you should be protected in case of injury or on death, which of course should be, your family, occurring in connection with your employment. So this is not a case of I cut my hand and then I'm the one liable for it. No. As the MLC really tried, and this is really quite this is really important now that we are all ill and 80, but nobody knows what might happen tomorrow, or we might even use this in helping someone out. Each member shall ensure that measures in accordance with the code are in place on ship that fly his flag to provide seafarers employed on the ship with a right to material assistance and support from the ship owner with respect to the financial consequences of sickness, injury, or death occurring while they were serving under a seafarer's employment agreement or arising from their employment under such agreement. It really explains it all, but that's exactly what the MLC is really trying to state. So people go on board a ship, they lose an hand, they lose a leg, injuries and sickness for some reason that they couldn't get back. There should be the ship owner also should still hold a large amount of responsibility in really caring for that seafarer, especially financially or in material assistance. And that is us, and that's our right as seafarers. I'll jump down to 4.3. 4.3 helps us in health and safety protection. Health and safety protection. Yeah, health and safety protection and accident prevention. And the purpose of this is to ensure that seafarers' work environment on board ships promotes occupational safety and health. To be honest, I don't know if I'm to say this, but for the first part of my own sea career, this wasn't going on fine. I mean, they were not complying with this because I could hardly get safety boots that time. In short, if you had that, this is a safety helmet, you're a big boy, unquote. But that should not be the case. We should all be working in a safe environment that will prevent accidents and it will promote, health and safety protection on board. And I'll just read what it says here. The code says each member shall ensure that seafarers on the ship that fly the flag are protected with occupational health protection and live, work, and train on board in a safe and hygienic environment. So, I remember when I was once a chief officer on a ship, and I have this marine manager coming on the ship and telling me, oh, Busayo, open the tank and sending 2 ABs to go in and start inspecting and washing the tank. And I'm like, no, That's not his work. That's not his done yet. Apart from even, you know, the MLC part of it, you're going against the safety part of it. If you want to send someone, you want to kill the person, and then we got into an argument, and then he threatened me with his own job. That was, of course, intimidation and victimization and all those stuff like that. But it's still my own responsibility for work, for the safety of the crew, especially the crew working under me. But now coming back again to look at this as well, every single working environment that you're working in must be safe. So you must really ensure it's safe for the seafarers. You must really ensure, even as a company, you are really making these guys to work under a safe and good working environment. If you want to go inside a tank, have you provided the tools that they need to go inside the tank? Have you allowed them to follow a proper procedure, or you are just under operational pressure and you just need them to get the job done? Because there are so many times we fall under operational pressure and then we go into hazardous works without even proper PPE. And even though we go with proper PPE as well, we go unsafe, we go in a manner that is so risky. But no, this is the MLC coming into play. This structure has just been there, to really try and make every seafarers aware of their own rights on board as well. Then each member shall develop and promulgate national guidelines for the management of occupational safety and health on board that flies flag. After consultation with representative ship owners, seafarers organization, and taking into account applicable code, guidelines, standard recommended by international organization, maritime administration, and maritime industry organization. And this part two was really where I was really trying to emphasize as well. For every single operations that we do on board, we must follow guidelines. There must be guidelines that must follow. You're going inside, especially an enclosed space tank. There are guidelines of when you must leave the tank open. There are extra PPEs that must be, that must be ensured, and every single risk assessment permits to work. Every risk must really be assessed. I'm not just talking about the permit to work paperwork, but no, it's strategic and structured risk assessment to ensure that no, there will be no accidents or no incidents or no near miss when they are inside the tank. So this is what the MLC is really trying to bring to our own awareness, and not just our own awareness, also to try and make sure that the flag state really enforced it for the seafarers as well. The last part, Title 4 has 4 titles. I'll start again. Title 4 has 4 titles, which is 1, medical care on board ship and ashore. And like I said, at no cost. You should try and remember that in capital letter, no cost to the seafarer. Then the 2, ship owner's liability. There's accident, or there's incident, or there's sickness, or there's death. When you are under an SEA, Seafarers Engagement Agreement, the ship owner should be liable. The ship owner should be responsible for material assistance the ship owner, should be responsible for material assistance towards the seafarer. Then 3 would be the health, safety, protection, and accident prevention. And then the last one under Title 4 would be 4.4, which is access to shore-based welfare facilities. One second. Deposit, access to shore-based welfare facility. And the purpose of this is to ensure that seafarers working on board a ship have access to shore-based facilities and services to ensure their health and well-being. This is another interesting one. Seafarers working on a ship must have access to shore-based facilities and services to secure their health and well-being. So this is not just when you are, this is not when you get injured on the ship and everything should stop on the ship, or they treat you on the ship. But no, if we need them to be at shore for maybe a major operation or whatever, the seafarer should be transported ashore immediately. Each member must ensure that shore-based welfare facility welfare facility, and not just only health as well, where they exist and are easily, ensure that shop-based welfare facility where they exist are easily accessible. And the member must also promote the development of welfare facility as listed in the code in designated ports to provide seafarers on the ship that are in its ports to access adequate welfare facilities. So welfare facilities is really a very, very important part for the seafarers. I know, yes, it might be looking all so sweet, but to be honest, these are really structures put in place that must be followed. That are to be followed and will be followed. And the responsibility of every ship, of each member with respect to shore-based facilities such as welfare, cultural, recreational, and information facilities and services are set out. It should be set out also. We're also going to be putting it out as well in the code. 4.4. This is our own recreational and welfare facilities they're talking about. But how do we access these things? Have we gotten to a point where, our companies, the companies that we work on, or our flag state, are they really even trying to push, enforce, and implement this? Or we get to a point where we totally forget about this and we just stick to some parts of the MLCs and forget about all these other parts as well? No, the awareness now should come into play, and we should try and see how we can really implement it. So that ends Title 4. And I like the speed at which this is going. And then it takes me down to Title 5 of it. And Title 5 is the most important part. How can this structure, how can it be followed? How can it be enforced? I'm just gonna, the Title 4, sorry, has one more, which is the social security. Social security. Title 4.5, social security. And this is to ensure that measures that are taken with a view to providing seafarers with access to social security protection. Each member shall ensure that all seafarers, and to the extent provided for in its national law, their dependents have access to social security protection in accordance with the code, without prejudice. However, to any more favorable condition referred to in paragraph 8 of the Constitution. But what it's just trying to tell us also is we should have access to social security protection. And this came in quite after when the MLC came, and there was more review as well. And each member shall ensure that seafarers who are subject to a social security registration to the extent provided in this national or their dependent are entitled to benefit from social security protection, no less favorable than that enjoyed by the shore workers. And that's interesting again, to say that the seafarers, whatever you're benefiting, your benefit from the social security protection should not be any less favorable than what the guys in the office are enjoying. Because this whole stuff coming to, it's just members of the ship, or just to comply with the MLC, let's give them this bit, but this is our main workers. But no, it's come back to tell you, it's not be less favorable. There should not be more favoritism in the shore side than on the ship side as well. Then now we'll quickly come down to compliance and enforcement. Compliance and enforcement. But before I go into that, does anybody have any question? So yeah, under the compliance and enforcement, we have the flag state responsibilities and the port state responsibilities. And what did I say about the flag state previously was that the flag state helps in implementing its responsibilities under this convention with respect to ship that fly its flag as well. So the flag states implement this law, and then they enforce this law. And how do they do this? They do this with the DMLC 1 and then the DMLC 2. the DMLC1 and the DMLC2. So the DMLC1 is the Declaration for Maritime Labor Convention, one which will be on the vessel. And this is one at which the flag state gives to the company to ensure that they comply with the MLC code. It states out their own rules on how the company will comply with the MLC code as long as the company is under that flag state. And then the DMLC2 brings out their own rule to see how, bring out their own rule to tell the flag states how we intend to comply with what you've given us as well. So there's two documents there, one from the flag states to the ship, and then the second one from the ship down to the flag state to really clarify and to really state how they're going to be complying with the DMLC. With the conditions that have been set out by the flag. So this is, and then how do they also continue to push forward? The flag states are also required to carry out MLC audits in order for the renewal of the MLC certificate, or they can carry out the MLC audits during the post-state control inspection, or if there's any additional inspection as well. And everything must be in compliance with what is being stated out on the MLC itself. Another lecture we can talk about, because one of the exam questions that we normally asked is, how do you prepare for an MLC audit? How do you prepare for an MLC audit as well? So what you prepare for an MLC audit is making sure that the MLC policies, MLC rules, MLC codes, and everything being stated are being followed up by your company. And notice when I say this, that we cannot complete any MLC if you are not able to show an evidence. So hours of work and rest to show evidence, SCA we show an evidence, recreational facilities we show evidence, and every single one. This evidence comes in paperwork as well. It comes in what you feel as well. So the flag state follows this up to the latter with the MLC maritime labor certificates that needs to renew every 5 years. Also, they follow this up also with post-state control inspection. They follow this up also with additional inspection that has been carried out. Also, onboard compliance, because onboard compliance as well is another structure which we can use in pushing forward for the MLC. And the onboard compliance is a system at which you can report to your next higher rank. So, for instance, if you are the AB and you have a complaint, you take it down to the bosun takes it down to the chief officer, and it must try to be solved at the lowest possible level. And the highest rank will be down to the captain, the company, and then the flag state. Captain, the company, and then your flag state. So the flag state can really come in to push an inspection for this. 5.2 will be post-state responsibility. So the post-state, like I also said, apart from flag state coming for their own inspection, coming for their maritime labor certificate, which is the MLC certificate, the post-state can also come in as well if you are carrying out a post-state control inspection and carry out their own MLC inspection as well. I'm just going to try and push that here. Yeah, post-state responsibility is to ensure every member to implement his responsibility under the Convention regarding international cooperation in the implementation and enforcement of the Convention on foreign ships. So both you foreign ships, and like I gave a perfect example of a ship leaving one country and entering into another country and another country taking the jurisdiction. This is how the port state works. This is how the port state works, inspection on the ports as well. But the major bulk of it falls on the flag state. The major bulk of it falls on the flag state. What are the flag states? What are they doing? How are they implementing this? How are they pushing forward for this? And of course, their certification as well. When it's time to renew the certificate, these are the major inspections that they will carry out while on the ship. I think with that, we've come to the end of the MLC. And if you have any questions on the MLC, you can pop it up to me next week, and then we'll treat it, and then we'll do a quiz on it as well. I want to use this opportunity to wish everyone doing an exam, because I heard some guys are doing exam this week, and I want to say, please, and please, we're praying for you, and we wish you success in your exam. Does anybody have any question for me at this point, or is everything well understood? I'm not seeing this screen properly. All right, then I'll say have a lovely Tuesday. I'm going to push this straight out now to the YouTube, so that the guys doing exam and the guys who are not able to join today will be able to read this through, and then we'll all come back in full class next week for our quiz as well. Well, yeah, thanks a lot. Thank you, Steven. I see you. Thanks a lot. And Oga Abel, thank you very much. We'll see you next week.
Thank you very much, Captain. I've really learned a lot today. This is where we are in management in school now as well. So
wow,
it has really broadened my knowledge.
No, that's good. If you have any questions, just pop it up to us, and we'll be glad to answer them.
Okay, sir.
All right.
Just that all this issue, you know how things are, where we are from.
Yeah.
The post-state, who are the people coming for the post-state? Just that not permitted to talk too much too. But it's painful.
I fully understand, sir.
It's painful. It's painful.
We understand, but we will get there. Like I said, first of all, we get the awareness, and with that awareness, we're able to bring a change into the system as well.
Amen.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much, and see you guys next week then.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Yeah.